Thank you for joining a read-aloud story. Margret and H.A.'s Curious George at the Baseball Game, written by Laura Driscoll and illustrated in the style of H.A. by Anna Grossnickle Hines, is highlighted in April of the 2024 PRC-Saltillo Calendar. This story is read using the TAAP strategy to encourage conversation and interaction with the AAC learner. The words we encourage you to model this month are no way, oh my, what, silly, that, think, and a few others. Let's take a closer look at how to model these words and tap your way through the story. The first step to tap your way through is to pick an activity. We've already done that. We're reading the book Curious George at the Baseball Game. Next, you decide how often you will stop and tap. For this story, we suggest tapping after every page of the book. So, how do you tap? First, you talk about it. We suggest modeling the messages no way and oh my. You can say, no way, oh my, no way, George, oh my, George, or whatever else grabs your AAC learner's attention. Next, you ask a question and wait for a response. We suggest modeling the word what. Some things you could say are, what will he do next? What happened? What did he do? Then you acknowledge their response. This month, we suggest modeling the words silly and that. You could say, oh, that George. Oh, silly George. Oh, that silly monkey, or whatever else feels natural. Finally, you propel the activity forward or predict. We suggest you model the word think. You could say, I think. Do you think? I think they will. Enjoy simply listening to the story or tap your way through the story demonstrating words and locations for the AAC learner on their technology. Find other words that are interesting to the AAC learner and use these words in other activities. Join us as we read about how Curious George becomes the star of the baseball game. Curious George at the Baseball Game. Margret and H.A.'s Curious George at the Baseball Game, written by Laura Driscoll and illustrated in the style of H.A. by Anna Grossnickle Hines. This is George. He was a good little monkey and always very curious. Today, George and the man with the yellow hat were going to the ballpark to watch a baseball game. George couldn't wait to see what it would be like. At the baseball stadium, the man with the yellow hat introduced George to his friend, the head coach of the Mudville Miners. He had arranged for George to watch the game from the dugout. What a treat! George got a miner's cap to wear. Then he sat on the bench with the players. He felt just like part of the team. The players cheered a miner's home run. George cheered too. The players groaned at a miner's strikeout. George groaned too. Then George noticed one of the miners' coaches making funny motions with his hands. He touched his cap, he pinched his nose, he dusted off his shoulder. Thought George. Maybe this was another way to cheer on the team. So George made some hand motions too. He tugged at his ear, he rubbed his tummy, he scratched his chin. Just then, a minors player got tagged out at second base. The player pointed at George. "That monkey," he said. "He distracted me with his funny signs." Oops! The coach had been giving directions to the base runner. George's hand signals had taken his mind off the play. Poor George. He had only been trying to be part of the team. Instead, the miners had lost a chance to score. George watched the rest of the game from a stadium seat. Or at least he tried to watch the game. There was so much going on around him. There was food for sale, there were shouting fans, there was a woman holding a big camera. The woman pointed her camera at some fans. And look! Those fans waved out from the huge screen on the ballpark scoreboard. George had never been on TV before. He was very curious. What would it be like to see himself on the big screen? He soon learned the answer. It was exciting. George liked seeing himself on the screen. "Hey, you!" shouted the camera woman. "Cut that out!" Uh-oh. George had gotten a little carried away. He ran off with the angry camera woman hot on his heels. In the busy stadium breezeway, George hid behind a popcorn cart. He waited for the camera woman to pass by. Just then, George heard a noise behind him. It was a quiet little noise, like a sigh or a sniff. What could have made that noise? George wondered. George turned. There, behind the cart, was a little boy crying. George wanted to help. He crept out of his hiding place and over to the boy. "Aha! There you are," shouted the camera woman, spotting George. Then the camera woman noticed the teary-eyed boy. She seemed to forget that she was mad at George. "I'm lost," the boy said. "I can't find my dad." If only there were a way to let the boy's dad know where he was. But there was a way. The camera woman aimed her lens at the little boy and... there he was on the big screen for everyone to see, including his dad. Within minutes, the boy and his father were together again, and the man with the yellow hat had come to find George. "I can't thank you enough," the boy's father said to the camera woman. The camera woman shrugged. "Don't thank me," she said. She patted George on the back. "It was this little fellow who found your son." George was the star of the day. The end.